Hello and welcome. This is just going to be a very quick video detailing exactly how you actually animate on DNMViewer. For this purpose we're going to be modifying one of my models, inverted. This is a version of the honey badger. We're going to be deleting and then re-adding one of these elevons and actually animating it. So let's go left elevator, let's go delete. So let's pretend that we've been making this model and we want to add this elevator. Now in order to do that, we introduce around here, insert, open new SRF. We locate where we've saved it. Hopefully it's not going to be too hard for me to find. I think it's under DNMViewer tutorial. Here we go. And left elevator, I think. And we'll call it left elevator. Alright, this will be very easy to see because it's the different color to the rest of the plane. Where is it? Left elevator. So, right now it's sitting at the origin, so it's the base of the elevator is actually sitting at XYZ 0, which we can see down here. So this is our position of the SRF. We want to move it out to the left. So let's go 2.5. You'll notice as well that these values here are actually opposite to what they should be. You can see the axes here, and that is actually the positive x direction going off to the right, and that is the positive y direction going forward. The reason that this is all reversed down here is very specific. It's only because of the fact that I imported this from Google SketchUp, and if you follow decaf's tutorial or Ward Flashcards tutorial, you shouldn't run into this issue. But if you're like me and you skip the corrections at the end, then you'll have this issue where everything actually comes out rotated. So normally, if I imported the plane all as one, this is roughly what it would look like. It'll be pointing down and away. And to fix that, all I have to do is just rotate it 180 degrees x, -90 y, and there we go. It's facing the correct direction now. But because I've rotated it, it means that it's the coordinate system is going to be a little bit messed up. But don't worry, if you do this properly, so if you import from Blender or something like that, you should not have this issue. Left elevator. So let's get it back here. So let's try 5. Nope, wrong axes. 5. So with regards to that, it isn't really important that you follow these exact directions. So Y is actually up and down, Z is actually forward and back, I think. Yeah, anyway. And so all I'm showing you here is actually what buttons to click on and what options to play around with. Boost that up to -0.5. I'm just going to actually kind of cheat here and just copy off the values of this one. So right elevator, -2.52, 4.825, and -0.442. And there we go. When I'm actually trying to line things up, I always make sure when I'm building the aircraft that there are certain points that meet up. So on this aircraft, the front of the elevator matches this little corner here. So now that we have this elevator in position, what we're going to do is animate it. Now, because we don't have any ailerons on the actual wing, I was very lazy when I made this model, what we're going to do is make these elevons. Elevons are featured on pretty much all modern aircraft. All they are just elevators that also provide input to roll, so they control roll as well as pitch. Now to do that, to make them have two functions, we need to actually make them a child of another SRF. So over here, all of these files here are children of this main file here. And note as well that this is a null SRF, which is an empty SRF with no polygons and no vertices. We can create them by right-clicking, going indent. You don't have this option via insert, but if you go indent, indent empty SRF, give it a name. So we'll call it left elevon, and I'll just call it left elev because we like short names. Now, if I actually wanted to make this parent, all I had to do is just drag this up here, and that's how I created that FA52 SRF. Anyway, we'll drag it down here to next to left elevator. We'll go right-click, indent, make it accessible. A little glitch, it's actually selected that. We'll delete here, right-click, delete. And make sure you left-click on this before you right-click. Indent, make accessible. My throat's a bit sore. Anyway. And then we'll drag left elevator down here. Now that we have these here, one important step, if you have a physical actual SRF as a child of a parent null SRF, what you need to do is transfer over all of this position data to the parent. Otherwise, if we wanted to rotate this, so say 30 degrees in the y-axis, you'll notice that instead of rotating down here, where it should, it's actually rotating around the parent, which is this null SRF that's actually sitting at 0, 0, 0. So in other words, instead of rotating around here, it's rotating around the origin. So the way to fix that is just to transfer over, or we'll get rid of the angle, and just transfer over that information. So 2.52, 4.825, and negative 0.442. And then we get rid of these original values, we make them 0. And there we go, it's back to where it was. Right, animating. So, it doesn't matter which order you do this in, but if we make this top one, say the elevator, we go down, elevator. In case you're not aware, CLAs are, I'm actually not sure what they stand for, but I'm assuming that they mean class. So, a CLA is a class of aircraft object, I guess. Basically, they define what an SRF is and what it actually does. So, basically, they tie, so an elevator ties directly to the controls in YSFlight that associate with the elevator, so with pitch. But, yeah, don't worry about that. Just select the function that you want. Anyway, so we have this as an elevator. Note here these 3 STA boxes. They represent the neutral position, which is STA1. STA2 represents, well, let's go find out. If we go up to here, to STA control, this allows us to modify, or actually to animate in DNMViewer what we're, well, actually to control our animations. So we'll click enable, and we're going to click on elevator up. Now, with these kind of things, what they mean is, so for elevator up, it means that you're actually, this is the animation that will show when you're pitching up, so when you're pulling back on the stick. Likewise, if you, rudders can be a bit confusing. If you go right or left, what that means is you're trying to push your nose to the left, not that the rudder's twisting left or anything like that. So, elevator up, go back to parts, make sure that we've got the right thing. Now, when you're pitching up, your rear surfaces will be pitching down, so we want to go to STA2, which is for the pitch up movement, I guess, whatever. And we want to give it a, I think, negative? No, we're going to go positive. Let's go positive 10 degrees. And so when I pitch up, so when I try to pitch up at my maximum rate, or angle, whatever, that is the maximum that we will get out of it. The reason that I'm not going to go any further than 10 degrees is because if I was pitching up and, let's see, rolling left, then I'll have 10 degrees from the elevator function, and then I'll also have another 10 degrees, if we choose 10 degrees, from the aileron function. And so what that means is that, sorry, Bandicam just cut out for a second. Yes, it will tilt 20 degrees in total, and that is just enough to not collide with the rudder. if we had the elevator tilt 15 degrees, and if we had the elevator tilt 15 degrees and the aileron tilt 15 degrees, resulting in a total of 30, then it would go through our rudder, and that's not good. So, elevator, 10 degrees. For the opposite, so when we are pitching down and this control surface is twisting upwards, we want negative 10 degrees. You won't see that because we've selected elevator up. If we select elevator down, you see that. Now, that is actually all that you need to do to add an elevator function. But we want to make ailerons, and so we're going to also add an aileron function. Aileron. Notice how it's disappeared. The reason that is when if you do not have these selected, then what it'll do is when you actually get to that position, so if it's sitting neutral and you do not have that selected, it will be invisible in YSFHQ. If you have these two selected, so if you have maximum pitch down selected and stuff, then when you actually get to those positions in YSFHQ, so when you actually pitch the control surface all the way, it will actually reappear. Likewise, if you have it around at neutral, but you don't have it around at these positions, when you actually get to maximum pitch, your control surface will disappear. And ultimately you don't really want that, but if you're imaginative and you want to do something fancy, you can actually use these abilities to your advantage and do some very cool stuff. A lot of Japanese modders have done some very fancy things using this kind of technique, and that is partly how you get things like mechs and soldiers and stuff running around. And go away. Now anyway, left elevator. Sorry, this is our aileron. We want to actually, let's see something. I'm not sure if this will work, but if we go aileron left, no, don't worry. There's a glitch in DNMViewer that you see sometimes, where basically, if I hadn't actually, we can give you a demo here. So let's go STA control and let's go rudder left. Now, if we go and find our rudders, so our right rudder over here, and we make it a rudder, make it enabled. Now if we, what did we choose? We went to left. If we go to STA2 and we try and make it move, it won't move. And that's not because we haven't selected the right STA. It's actually because if you assign a movement over here in the STA controls, but you have not yet, at that point, selected a class for that object that you want to move, it won't respond. If that's the case, all you have to do is just go back to STA control, deselect enable, and then click it again. And then if you go back down to rudder left, and it will move. So let's get that back. So that's just something to keep in mind in case you have weird issues. And we'll get rid of that because we don't have time to mess around with other stuff. Anyway, back to the aileron. 20 degrees, we don't want that, we want 10 degrees. Make sure you have the correct orientation, so aileron left, we want to roll left. So yes, that's correct. And if we want to aileron right, give it a negative 10 degrees, that's also correct. We can have multiple movements. So if we were pitching up and rolling right, it would look like that. If we were pitching down and rolling right, it would look like that. And likewise the opposite. And that's adding an aileron. Everything else is very similar in the process. The only differences are for landing gears, for example. You'll notice here that it comes under body/gear. The way that you actually gain the ability to add animations for landing gears. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The way that you add animation for a landing gear is not by changing the CLA, unless you want to make it appear under a different class for some reason, but you change this NST value. I don't know what NST stands for, but it does control how many STAs that you can control. So for a gear, click 2 or 3. No, you can't do 3, but you can do 2. And what that means is that, actually, let's just look at the landing gears that I have on this plane. Main landing gear, left landing gear. So you can see here, NST2, and I've got it so that the position here is where it sits normally, when it's retracted, I believe, and STA2 represents when it is down. Yep, I think. I don't actually know, but I presume so. STA2 is this position here, so let's check. Yep, so 0.25. STA, yeah, when it's down, when it's up, and the default position. Although you can just have this information here as well, it doesn't matter. My biggest recommendation to all modders, regardless of whether you're using DNMViewer or Blender or anything, in fact this applies to life really, is to just experiment with everything. There were no tutorials for DNMViewer when I was, learning to mod, and it shows in my earlier products, but if you actually give things a shot and play around and be a scientist, I guess, then that is how you can learn to be a great modder. Or, I'm not calling myself great, but all the good modders have learned how to do their stuff by experimenting. And anything else I can think of? One cool little trick as well, in case you didn't read the tutorial properly or fully. If you go to settings, you can have alter some graphics options. So background image, you can replace that grey in the background with an image. I'm not going to bother. You can change the color, so to any color. You can change the lighting, so let's just quickly change that to 1. You can see there. No, you can't. My phone's nearly going flat. Let's go X1. You can see light comes from the side. But whatever. Let's keep that as default. Propeller revolution, this is pretty useless, don't bother. And this thing switches between perspective and orthographic. So, I guess if you're interested in the physics of an aircraft, or the engineering or whatever, this is a good view to get a greater understanding of, I guess, the physics of it, or the... Well, let me put it this way. Let's say the ride-to-rudder is going to be an air brake as well. So, if you're aware... Sorry, just if you're not aware, on a Hornet or a... What else? F-22 or an F-35 or the newer Sukhois and that kind of stuff, they do not have a air brake up here, like on, the older Sukhois or F-15s. Instead, their rudders actually turn inwards to create extra drag. And so, if you're in perspective, sometimes it looks like it's not actually going to be creating much drag. Like, let's say it only tilts... What do we have here? Let's say it only tilts... No, that's wrong direction. Wrong direction still. Let's say it only tilts 10 degrees. Now that doesn't look like much, does it? However, let's also add it to the other side. Now if we actually go to perspective, you'll notice here that... So this is roughly what... this is the actual true dimensions of the aircraft. And so you'll notice that this probably increases the drag, the actual frontal surface area of the aircraft by, something like 30%. So it's a significant increase in drag. Even if you increased it by, went to 20 degrees, that makes it massive. Yet in perspective, it might not look like that much. But anyway, you get the idea. Also, if you're ever creating little 3-view diagrams, so those kind of images where you see a top view and a side view and a front view. If you ever want to create proper versions of those, make sure that you do it in orthographic, because otherwise it's not actually correct. For example, so here's a correct orthographic side view, yet if you have perspective, Bandicam cut out again. Anyway, if you're in perspective, this is from the side, yet as you can see part of the rudder here, which isn't correct because if this were a true side view, you would not be able to see the other side from, sorry, this rudder should be blocking that rudder and vice versa, whatever. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to go on for now. If you'd like to learn about more or something like that, send me a message, a personal message on YSFHQ, or reply to this video or something along those lines. And yeah, good day.